Hi everyone, my name's Caitlin. Thanks for watching. This is Grass-Fed Girl, and we're going to do an interview today with Dr. Hannah Lee. She is at Dr. Hannah Lee on Instagram, which is at Dr. Hanalei. Is that right?
Yeah, Dr. Hannah Lee. You know how once you get it wrong, it just gets worse and worse, right? But yeah, I'm from Hawaii, so think Hannah Lee on Kauai. There you go.
Awesome. I've actually been there. So she's going to tell us about her carnivore journey today. We're excited to hear. She's done a lot of tweaking and testing and seeing what's right for her. So we're going to hear about her trials and tribulations and successes. So welcome, Dr. Hanalei.
Hanalei. Sorry.
Dr. Hannah, welcome.
Yeah, aloha everyone. So I'm a naturopathic physician and a mom. I live here on the Big Island, and yeah, I think I've had a similar path to a lot of us, right? Of kind of going Weston Price and nourishing traditions and paleo and then keto, and finally the apex, right? The top of the pyramid, the carnivore, sort of just seeing the power. It's almost been a year. I think last October I did the dive of a strict 30-day carnivore challenge and was sort of amazed by it, and kind of been hyper carnivore, keto carnivore, strict carnivore since then. But I'm breastfeeding, so I'm a little more lax with myself. I'm kind of like, okay, I've added in carbs, and then I've been like, the more carbs I add in, the worse it gets. So I kind of, at least what I love about carnivore is that you have like a home base, like a safe place, almost like your home den where you can retreat to. Like you kind of can go out and, okay, let's see how fruit does or this. And then you're like, okay, at least I know where home is. Where I think before I was a little bit lost in that sometimes things would work and sometimes they wouldn't. And I never kind of felt like I had a safe diet space, if that makes any sense,
Oh yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, and so, just as a naturopathic practitioner, a lot of what I'm going to share today is just my personal story. And so by no means is this my medical advice for everyone. I really think we all need to kind of find our own, what works for us, and we're different. Although I think we could all benefit from a strict 30-day carnivore challenge, elimination diet. It really, if anything else, is an elimination diet. I think it's just drastically underused as a dietary intervention medically.
Go back to the beginning and when like your health problems started, or what got you into searching for answers and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so always struggle with depression. One weird thing happened when I was 11. I went to the East Coast and like all my hair fell out and I went into this deep, dark depression. I don't know if I got Lyme at that point or what, but I remember being in middle school having these deep, dark, crying for no reasons, just so struggled with my mood a lot in high school, and I was always tired. Like I ate mostly macrobiotic. My mom was very health conscious, but that meant a lot of like whole wheat sourdough bricks and lots of brown rice and all of that. So I was grateful that it was pretty clean, organic. But yeah, I just remember eating at high school and lunch and just going to tennis practice or cross country and just wanting to take a nap. So I think I had that gluten sort of just, inflamed brain. My weight was pretty stable at that point because I worked out a lot, but it was probably a couple sizes higher than it needed to be. And then when it really went south was college, just that cliche of kind of overeating, binging, just being in this sort of, I think a lot of food addiction is when you're lonely and you're kind of away from a good community structure, you kind of can go south. So it really went south for me in college. I got up to, I think I'm like 5'8.5" and was like 140 to 150 high school, and then went up to like 180 in college, and just was like, I never binged and purged or restricted or over-exercised. But I think I learned from my mom, was severely bulimic for many, many years. So I kind of learned she gave it up when she was actually pregnant with me. So it's almost kind of like, okay, I'm gonna binge, but I'm not gonna go down that road, right? So I'm grateful for that it never got bad. But it was like, I don't know if you know Louis C.K., the comedian, but his whole line is like, I don't eat till I'm full. I eat till I hate myself, And so it was basically a lot of that, like eating, just binging till you hate yourself kind of feeling. And so that was rough. Like I would say, yeah, just eating boxes of cookies and then going from one restaurant to another. And yeah, I never got up crazy amounts of weight, but it was just like, it was brutal. So, and then at that point I figured out low carb and gluten-free was really a way to manage my weight and my mood. So, but that kind of turned into a lot of, ground turkey and salad and kind of just that classic, I don't know why we do this as women, but we don't know how to eat a steak. We'll just go to like lean turkey and chicken and salad. So I kind of got onto the whole low carb, Weston Price. I think that was early 2000s. I was really into studying nutrition and mental health, and I could see how I'd been on maybe 1 month of Prozac and nothing helped there. I never really did long-term medication, but I just found, okay, when I eat healthy fats and whole foods and I don't eat processed food and wheat, I'm much better and my weight's better. So that was, I still struggled with my mood, but it wasn't nearly as dark and as like binge eating. So I would say at that point I had healed my overeating, my compulsive overeating at that point, but still would dip into it. Like it's hard to binge on broccoli, but you can still kind of do it sometimes, So when you have that tendency to overeat, you can binge on anything, but it's just, so much harder with non-palatable food, not non-palatable, but not hyper palatable, right? So, but yeah, still struggle with a little anxiety, depression. And I'd say if I was to categorize it, it would be that hypomania where you have that bipolar type 2. So you don't get those really fun manic phases or not so fun, where you're just, spending all your money and not sleeping for days, but just that sort of feeling where a few days you're talking way too fast, you're too flirtatious, you have too many ideas, you're in too good of a mood, and then it only really lasts like a few days and then you kind of crash. So I'd say I spent most of the time in sort of cyclothymia, kind of going in and out of high low, and then also just hitting those lows, right? So yeah, but then a lot of euthymic points as well, where I'd be like, I'm fine, I don't have anything wrong with me, and then something stressful or things would happen and then it would sink me down. So I've had that off and on, and I've been pretty stable the last 5 years being more keto, but really the carnivore, just that mental clarity, getting out that last bit of carbs and plants and weird fibers, it's just been amazing, that clarity. So that's kind of a brief overview, but there's definitely some, but since college, I went really deep into that paleo, ancestral health, and in med school, I never restricted meat I never had like a vegan sort of veggie phase or anything. I always knew the power of meat, but it was that classic, like eat your greens and, if you're low carb, but got to get your 7 cups in, like what's your microbiome going to do? Like, just that total bias towards diversity, plant foods. Yes, healthy fats and that nourishing traditions, kind of Weston Price, but what are you going to do without your fiber kind of brainwashing, which a lot of us have had, so that's, yeah, the simplicity, the clarity, the beauty of carnivore, I'm in love. Like, it's very nice.
Yeah, well, and I like what you said about the safe place. I mean, I know for a long time I studied the GAPS diet, and that was, they talked about that a lot, and the guys who do like SCD lifestyle, they talk about that, the safe place, the safe foods that you can eat. But like on keto, I could never find those safe foods because every food was like the worst, like the chocolate, the flax seeds, the almonds, the broccoli even was my enemy. So the lettuce, the salads. So yeah, I can totally relate to that. And so what motivated you to go for the 30 days? And then what changes did you see when you did the 30 days on carnivore?
Yeah, I think I was a little brainwashed against carnivore. I was pretty low carb for a while, but you know, I love Dave Asprey and the whole bullet, you know, I love his whole information, but like I think we have to be careful, myself included, or listening to anyone. Like people can throw out lines like, oh, zero carb, I did zero carb and it gave me leaky gut, you know, and you kind of like file these things away as just kind of almost biases. So I had kind of, and also just the thought of only meat, like when you're a foodie kind of chef person, feels a little like, I don't know about that, you know, but
It feels like a life sentence.
you're a little bit, you're like, because and especially when I'm not like, I do think that brain health is very autoimmune related. Like it's sort of overlapping Venn diagrams, and some people have, you know, overall like, okay, they're autoimmune attack on their brain, but I think you can treat a lot of anxiety, depression, ADD in the same way you treat autoimmune disease and come a long way, right? It's the gut brain whole connection. So you know who it was too? It's always Jordan Peterson. Why is Jordan Peterson? You're listening to some cool like, oh, okay, motivate me, Jordan Peterson on some, and then you're like, what? Jordan Peterson's carnivore? What? Like, okay, I should try this. And then you just, I don't know. I think I saw Sean Baker a little, or I just sort of saw, and Michaela Peterson's story was pretty profound. Just wanting to try it out, you know, and what did I notice? I'm down. I was down at that point. I had a 7-month-old at the time, and so I didn't gain any weight during pregnancy. Really, you know, with low carb, I could keep it down. And although my first trimester, somehow all I lived on was Amy's enchiladas. I just I don't know what that was, but it was a little bit of a weird pregnancy blip. But I was back on track, and then. But what did I notice last October? I really noticed. Well, the body composition, even dropping 5 pounds from, you know, like 155 to 150, like kind of getting down and just really no bloating. Like I never thought that I had digestive issues, but then you realize, oh my God, these weird, I would buy these like weird, you know, those Lily's sugar-free chocolates and all those kind of weird keto. I wouldn't eat Quest bars. I knew those were like, meh. But then just these weird things with all these inulins and these like weird, why, I don't know why all the packaged keto food now has all these weird fibers, but eliminating all that stuff, I was like, I have no bloat. I have a flat stomach. It's amazing. Like, and then just a steady energy, that just stable, because depression, bipolar, ADD, like that whole genre, it's sort of like epilepsy in a sense, like an overexcited brain. And there's that resting potential of the nerves drops with the ketones. And then there's just all these ways that I think it affects your brain, and mood stability was just like through the roof. So yeah, there's a lot of things, you know, the little things that you don't, my rosacea, like I don't have horrible rosacea, but I get a little flushed. Yeah, it's powerful.
No, did your digestion change at all?
Maybe a little more solid. I didn't get that whole constipation, diarrhea. Some people, there's a whole adjustment. I just felt, the main thing I felt was, and I've noticed it more since, say, by like a month ago, I went on vacation and ate some squash and then this or that. And I noticed too, if I eat like, say, some yogurt or like probiotics with starch, and then just that kind of SIBO brain fog, kind of bloat, fatigue feeling, which, as we know now more, is like that you can get this D-lactic acid from that bacteria that just goes right to your brain, makes you kind of that fog. And just I noticed, I don't think I noticed at the time how my digestion was so bad, but then now I'm like, if I add anything in, I'm just like, oh, that's that feeling. Like, you know, like you that whole noise to signal idea, right? That you have to like reduce the noise to hear the signal. So I think a lot of us are like, my digestion's fine. And then you're like, well, why do you fart all the time? And like, I don't fart anymore. Like, okay, like it's amazing. You know, just stuff like that we just take for normal, right? That's just normal GERD and farting and bloating. That's what everyone has, right? You know?
Well,
Yeah.
it's interesting to me. Like I always thought, you know how when you can't figure out what's wrong with you, then you think, well, maybe I have, some sort of deep-rooted emotional problem, because I had struggled with constipation a lot. And then, when I started carnivore, I just started going to the bathroom without like trying. And I was like, what's this? What's happening? I guess I don't have some deep emotional trauma. I
Yeah.
just have, intolerance to, vegetables and chocolate and almonds. I mean, it was weird because I always, when you do for so long, you just think, oh, well, must be this thing, something that happened to me. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Right, totally. And I think as physicians, we actually do that. I think we do that too much, right? We like, oh, we know that IBS does have psycho-emotional components, but like, is that where we should go first? Is that where we should be addressing it? Like,
I mean, there's always stress component, um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if it has. There's a balance. You can't just go all the one side to the other. Or like it's all emotional or it's all.
No, but it seems like this is a baseline, whereas and I think too, I won't throw all functional medicine or naturopathic medicine under the bus, but we're so quick to all these cool herbs and all these cool supplements and heal your gut like with all these things. But it's like, okay, lower your inflammation with curcumin, but it's like, are we addressing the dietary component of the inflammation? Maybe, let's start here and then maybe we can play with supplements a little bit. But I'm just more and more, that's been very revolutionary too of this is researching like the Paleo Medicina group and just really doing a deep dive of, okay, first do no harm. Like, am I prescribing something that has this good thing in it, but also all this stuff that could be irritating the gut, or is it unnecessary, a waste of money? So that's been really nice to kind of dial back and
there's almost no, I mean, I took supplements and really high grade supplements for years, and they're always full of crap. Right. It doesn't matter what they are. I mean, you can buy the most expensive supplements from, Chris Kresser's website or whatever, and they still have weird stuff in them, I mean, just for example, I love Chris Kresser, but
we love those paleo guys too.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that, but I spent thousands on supplements, and I mean, it never did anything. The biggest breakthroughs I've had are with the thyroid medication. That was probably the first thing. I mean, then going gluten-free, of course, was helpful, and it helped me get back on track and everything. And then staying low carb was really big. But the biggest change I saw was like thyroid medication, and then carnivore. But that was about 9 years in between that.
No, and I think that as naturopaths, it's interesting because we did learn in school. When I think back, we learned about the lamb and pear diet, or these like elimination diets that were, maybe we didn't eat the pears, but we would learn about these really strict ones. But they were always sort of thrown out as like, oh, those poor people that can only eat lamb, like almost like a, God forbid, like that diversity is really, there's a bias towards it, that is healthy. And now I look back, I'm like, well, that's pretty much all you need. Some ruminants, right? Like you're good to go. So I think as naturopaths and we're kind of, that whole group of us as practitioners, we're almost going to be like, we're like halfway there, like closer to carnivore than say traditional MDs, but we're almost probably going to be the most stubborn to give up the plants because we're so by like botanical medicine and like you need your salad for your, so I think we're in a weird spot. And then there's weird people like me that are like, I'll try that. But, it's interesting.
So what do you think about, I mean, it must be hard because there's that big component of like the AIP and like Terry Walls that's all 9 cups a day and, but yet people with autoimmune disease are finding healing on paleo. I mean, carnivore, and I tried AIP for 8 weeks. And I mean, I know that's not very long. I mean, that's what they'll they'll always tell me, that wasn't long enough. But it's like, well, I feel like you should see some change at 8 weeks, And I always thought it was just so complicated, I just could not. And I felt super like scared to go out of my house or eat out or anything. And that to me was very socially isolating, which I felt was more detrimental than what I was trying to help,
Yeah, it's so I mean, here's an example literally of like a year ago of maybe a prescription I would give someone. So someone with like Graves' disease. I'm thinking back to this exact conversation I had with a patient. It was like, they had Graves and sinusitis and a bunch of different stuff. I'm like, okay, so you need to be, his dad has diabetes. So I'm like, okay, well, you need to be low carb and watch going diabetic. Okay, AIP. I think you might have some histamine intolerance. And so, really watch your FODMAPs. Are you aware of oxalates? Like, and then he literally was like, what do I eat? And I was like, and I think I said meat, but I wasn't like, you eat meat. And so how much simpler is it to say to someone, eat meat for a month rather than these like long lists of, and not to say that there aren't plant foods in there that certain people can tolerate better and have, obviously like gluten and soy are way down on the list of just like toxic, right? But yeah, just the simplicity. And, that's the beauty of carnivore that I really have been looking for in my life. Like as a practitioner, there's something about the madness of modern life that it's like more supplements, more labs, more this, like what, and it's just more and more and more and more. And then in my life, I'm trying to do minimalism and really trying to just less. And they didn't seem to be adding up. And carnivores really added that into my life is like, okay, like here's some liver pills and maybe let's work on your, I'll still do labs and do a lot of different IVs and, a lot of different things, but I'm just trying to simplify for people. And that's just priceless, I think.
That's awesome. Well, what do you think about people? I mean, I think some people think, well, carnivore is a cure-all for everything. But then if you've come up with functional medicine, you've learned about the SIBO and you've learned about the parasites and all these tests. And so it's like, is there still a need for that? Or does it just cure all? Or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people where like I don't like to go to doctor. I don't like to buy things. I don't like to give my power away. I like simplicity in general, but I also like knowledge and information and, I want to do what works. So I think the answer's somewhere in between. Like, but my question is with all these labs is always with the patient, okay, is this going to be clinically relevant? Right. So a lot of the SIBO testing, I'm like, okay, well, a breath test, is that really clinically relevant? Couldn't we just, like, for example, another madness, the SIBO. So for people that don't know, the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, there's all these elemental formulas and these like herbal protocols and rifaximin and all these things. But when you really get down into looking at the science, some of these elemental diets, they'll say like, okay, we'll make this weird concoction of honey and amino acids, but you can also eat steak. And you're like, okay, can we just eat steak? Like, or, can we not overfeed? But there's something in between. Like there are chronic infections, like there is EBV and Lyme, and there's a lot, I'm not saying, throw out medicine altogether. It's just that healthcare is just a frustrating, it shouldn't even be profit driven. It's just a weird whole system. And so like I chose a less weird system than pharma. To me, in my mind, I was like, I can't go down the pharma sort of line. But then in natural medicine, you can also be doing some of the same stuff by just treating symptoms with herbs or the green allopathy thing, or, having people drop like $5,000 on labs and all these supplements that it's like, okay, maybe if they have money to burn, but otherwise, like, yeah. So anyway, it's complicated. It's not like a simple thing.
Yeah. But I think it's a great way, like, at least you could try carnivore first, and then if it doesn't work after a few months, you could kind of fine tune and say, okay, well, maybe you should try this test or that test.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do find it's kind of dialing back a little. one thing I find interesting, I do like comprehensive stool analysis and that sort of thing, but I really, the more I'm studying the microbiome and all that, we just don't know, you know? So it's like interesting that we sort of, I think as doctors, we act like we know more than we do. Like in a sense, like, okay, we're just scratching the surface here. We don't know what this means. And anyway, it's.
Have you seen people stool tests who have done carnivore, and are they dying of lack of
dying of? Well, I mean, so in terms of, so I struggle to get patients even to just like give up. Sometimes there's gluten and soy, like even just to go like more simple, like cut out, I always start with just, cutting out the big lectins and processed food and grains. But I have been getting people I haven't run a stool analysis on a carnivore, but I've just recently been more kind of like, okay, like that's my go-to is like, okay, well, at least do a, like instead of doing an elimination diet that was tailored to each person, let's do a carnivore. If you're willing, let's do it, But in terms of like and analyzing it all, it's just, again, I think I've been a little bit like, do we need to run that test? Okay, your digestion's good. Like, do we need this whole, DNA analysis of your whole, like, I like that whole biohacker world where we're just analyzing everything. And, there's a whole subset of people that I think, especially these computer programmers, are really like almost pushing medicine farther than doctors are, right? Because they're like the Dave Feldmans and these people doing, but I don't think personally I'm a biohacker of I'm not getting an Aura ring or, getting all these like lab tests. And it's just like, well, if you have a baby, it's like, do you want to have an Aura ring? Like just to be depressed at how little sleep you have, like sort of. Yeah. So yeah, I'm in study of carnivore. I'm in study of the labs. I wouldn't say I'm an expert yet. It's been exciting to see it work for me. And I'm still not completely, sold that like that strict carnivore for everyone, is like the way, but it's pretty convincing. Like Paleo Medicina, they actually have you followed the PKD, kind of looked at some of their research?
I've just heard her talk. I haven't really looked at the website or anything.
Yeah, we're testing it. And so that is interesting where you're actually like, okay, they say healthy people like 30% fruits, veg, but they're really down on the dairy and down on supplements, and they're actually doing tests that we can't do here to really see. But to each their own. I think I kind of intuitively, we don't have studies yet. Intuitively, I sort of think that eating local food that is grown by the light, your mitochondria can process that. So not eating stuff grown far away, and then maybe in the summer you can eat a little more fruit. If you have no like real disease process and it works for you, maybe it makes sense. Like a little greens in the spring, maybe. But this whole thing that like spinach is even a food, it was just, we didn't even eat it 200 years ago, right? So I'm in study, but it's sort of like, it's really hard in this modern food environment to be like, yeah, you can eat almonds like seasonally. It's like, what does that even mean? Like, you got to pick a month like that you only eat something, like maybe.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, what makes sense to me is like when you say that, 17 things are made out of the weed that broccoli is made out of, it's like, okay, well, that means that it's not really something we would have eaten, a long time ago. Or that, looking at refrigeration and trucking, I mean, I know my grandmother, she said she only got an orange on Christmas in her stocking, she's 96. It's like, well, now we can have cuties all year long, and little kids are eating these little cuties all year. And it's like, well, that's not normal, for what we would have had just 100 years ago,
Totally. Yeah, that hybridized. Yeah, it's a really awkward, weird food environment. And what I like about carnivore too is that for someone like me I'm not like the strictest person in general with everything. I'm a little more flowy. Keto was a little too lax because there's all these kind of weird oils and, mayos can sneak in, or if you eat salads at restaurants, they're always covered in weird canola stuff. And then these weird treats. And So carnivore actually is it's so clean because you can't, you might like, oh, have a bulletproof here and there, like a bite of something, but you're not like fully indulging in things. And so you don't push those carb cravings, and you just, it dials it back so naturally, right? Like,
I know, I mean, on keto, it's like, I mean, you could be in Target and then the next thing you know, you're eating a bar out of the aisle, you know, and you're like, okay, this isn't normal, you know, you should be eating something at home, you know, but that's available, so why not, you know, what is that, a hero bar? Oh my God, it's like the tastiest thing ever. And like you could eat 6 of them out of the box until they're gone. That's what I couldn't handle the sweeteners. Like this is the first time in my life I've gotten off the sweeteners. Like I've always been obsessed with sweeteners. Even on paleo, I was eating the stevia, and I mean, I wasn't using honey because I knew I couldn't handle that. And but just to be off those sweeteners is amazing because it was like a chain around my neck. Like 3 times a day, I had to have something sweet. You know, even though it didn't have calories, I mean, it was still like a nagging thing, you know, like I had to get in the car and go buy my Lily's bar or whatever, and it's like $4, you know.
And then you eat the whole thing and you're like gut bombing for the day, like, oh my God.
Oh, yeah, or you have a Molotov reaction or something horrible. And yeah,
I want to talk to you, like, I think we're similar in that like foodie chef kind of vibes. And hasn't it been amazing? Like I was like, med school, or should I be a chef? You know, like always would cook for retreats, and I love that. I love the high of it too, you know, cooking for 100 people or just that. But now I'm amazed at how I can just use salt and a little pepper, maybe, if I'm being crazy, right? Like dialing back the sweet, but also dialing back your taste for all these like tastes, you know, and not that I don't think you can use some spices or fresh herbs, but just almost on that minimalist, but also not making everything so, just dialing back your senses in general is so awesome.
yeah, and I'm just not needing to have just so many things to put on something, and or you know, how many dishes and how many trays of, I used to make Brussels sprouts every day and all this stuff, and then I had tons of dishes, and my husband is a chef and he taught me how to cook, and so like we would just make huge elaborate, you know, and I mean we still cook for people when they come over and stuff, and it's fun, but on a day-to-day, even he will just eat chicken wings with me or something. Like he doesn't have to have 17 vegetables. He doesn't care either way. If they're there, great. If not, you know, he didn't grow up eating giant salads. I mean, he mostly ate vegetables that are cooked, like stews and stuff like that. So I mean, he likes that, but he doesn't care if you have, you know, huge bowls of broccoli or vegetables. He doesn't even like broccoli. He didn't even grow up eating broccoli. So he's like, what is this crap?
Well, that's so cool, because I always kind of inherently knew, like, okay, I'm going to spend $20 on this, all these vegetables, and spend 20 minutes trying to make the salad, or I could just grab a slice of cheese and go. Like I would always like know that, like, so I would always, but I'd beat myself up over it. Like, I don't know, why aren't you like making that salad? And I'd be like, I don't have time. Right. But kids, like, they don't really want you know, so it's like, we always talk about intuitive eating, but we don't intuitively want to eat like a kale smoothie or, you know, all these things. So it's kind of interesting to think back and be like, oh yeah, you kind of knew where the value was, right? Like meat is the value and the rest is sort of entertainment, if you can get away with it, is kind of where I'm at now. And, you know, famine food, right? Too. Like I have so here we just got ducks and trying to get, you know, I have like local lamb next door and lots of beef. We're really blessed with like grass fed everything, but I also have trees just dripping fruit and ulu, and everyone gives you, you know, just like literally like starch is like rotting all around you. And so if you eat with the seasons or like what is around you just, it's like starch bombs everywhere, right? So yeah, anyway.
Well, I think if you actually were living outside or something and you needed to get fat for the winter, you know,
Right.
then it might be good, but because that's not our reality. And also we come from growing up, we have disordered eating or whatever you want to call it. So it's not something we need to get ready for because we live in absolute comfort all the time. So I was going to say, so how's it balancing with kids and eating? So you have 2 kids now, or?
So my son, it was interesting. He has some behavior stuff, not like, I don't think he's really on any spectrum or like diagnosable, but I noticed with too much processed food and wheat, his brain is a little irritated and his behavior. I mean, like all of us, right? But he's just started kindergarten and he really wanted to eat the school lunch. So I like let him do it. And I was like, oh, it's farm to table. But I realized now all that means is like a slice of orange, like on the plate or something that was local. But so I could notice his behavior a little more agitated. So we've reined that in. But it's hard. Like my daughter at 22 months is much easier, right? I breastfeed her. I can feed her just like raw liver and like, animal, and they eat some rice noodles and they eat some fruit and banana, I don't restrict them, but I try to not have too much grains in the house. And it's hard. It's a hard fight, man. I give it to people, like even someone who knows, and then the level of just like he goes to soccer practice and then they give him Otter Pops and Oreos at 5 p.m. like, right. It's just like, and you want to be the mom who's like grabbing it away and being, I'm trying to balance that, like not making it weird, but also not just giving in to the onslaught of nastiness. So yeah, it's a struggle. I'm not like,
That's what everyone says. Like they don't want to be the mom who's like, just mean or something, but you also want them to sleep at night or,
I think pushing your edge, I need to push my edge a little harder. And it was interesting. He was home some this week and his behavior was just beautiful. And I really upped the fat and really upped the meat this week. And so I just got to try harder. But even my littlest, she found like honey and she's like signing for more honey. And I'm just like, oh God. And it begins, right? Like
she's found the
she's found crack. Yeah.
That's funny. Well, so what are you doing now with your practice and stuff?
Mm-hmm. So I'm just back part-time, but I definitely am at least presenting carnivore to people. And it's frustrating too. Like people kind of, they'll get on and then say their cholesterol goes up. All their joint pain's gone and all these things are improved, but then like their regular doctor will test their cholesterol or they'll go talk to someone and freak out. And I'll try to explain like the bigger picture and all of it. But it's, some real successes and some also like some people getting on it. It's really, it's really great for Lyme disease, I think, in terms of just inflammation. It's anecdotally been used a long time. But so people, I noticed like symptoms better, but then some women can't handle, like if they were restricting, they can't handle the weight gain of it too, right? That they give up too soon, where before I think they're actually going to normalize. But with that said, like, I try to get people, like this week I had a Hashimoto's patient who went into full flare and I'm just like, what's going on? And she's like, oh, well, I'm eating Chinese food and I ate some my husband wants to go every night. And I'm just like, okay, one exposure of gluten is like 6 months of antibody. Like, no. And now she's better, but it's like, she's one of those biased people where I try to explain all the plant things, but even getting people from vegan to Whole30 to me is like that's great. Like, so wherever people are, I'm just trying to like see the biggest thing and okay, well, think about oxalates or think about this. And then some people just jump right into carnivore, but it's been hard for me to fully like, I'm in study of it. And to me, it does seem a little extreme to tell people like, okay, only eat meat, right? Like it's a little, I'm not there with everyone, I'm kind of like, okay, well, let's just navigate, right?
Well, it's also how, like I had the health coach that I had that told me to do it. She, listened to me complain for like 6 months about how nothing was working, and that I tried everything. And, you know, it was a really hard case. And then she was like, I think this is the thing for you. And I was like, ugh. And of course I didn't want to hear about it because I didn't want to do any more cutting or anything. You know, I didn't want to cut out anything else, but I'm glad she kept on me. So you're doing the good work.
Yeah, I think of it as planting seeds sometimes too, right? Or just even normalizing it. Like, because I don't think, yeah, I mean, like I said, I've always been talking about the autoimmune paleo and nourishing traditions and gaps and that, but I don't think it goes far enough, and it's more complicated than carnivore. So both of those things are leaning me more towards starting with carnivore, and then, you know, so
maybe they could go back, start with carnivore, then you could say, well, now you can have an avocado or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So are you seeing people on the phone, or do you have an office, or?
Yeah, so mostly just my local. I have a couple offices here, but I'd like to get more into. You know, it's been inspiring to maybe have more of a virtual practice. I'm kind of one of those people. It's like I want to be just like out in nature with my kids, like not on social media. You know, just kind of eschewed all that. But then I'm also like so passionate about this. I'm like, wow, this is like actually motivating me enough to want to have a blog or want to make videos or do more and kind of work with people motivated in this, because that's been frustrating. Is like, yeah, I can kind of push people towards it, but when they're like, you're seeing like vegans or, you know, it's hard to go there and to have people willing to go there with you always. So that would be fun to, let's kind of see. I also want to start to aiming towards doing maybe more retreats too. Like I live right on the ocean, like beautiful, like there's nothing, you know, more healing than just like nature here, and maybe like doing a strict carnivore with people and kind of doing more personalized stuff. But I'm not quite there yet, but I see that as like something exciting, and kind of, I think there would be a definite need for something like, there's plenty of retreats, but are there carnivore retreats that are simple and like, you know, right? So yeah, but just with a kid right now, I'm kind of doing the mom thing and working part-time and just kind of homesteading and just trying to find the balance in there. And but I see, you know, as like she's getting more self-sufficient, I'm like, okay, there's also carnivore has given me a little bit more of a focus and a passion. Like I think I was a bit disillusioned with natural medicine too, of kind of just like all the stuff and like, okay, why aren't they getting better? Like, come on, like this is a little better and here, but just not, it wasn't to my standards of what I wanted for people, right? And so I was a little frustrated too. So I'm like excited by the simplicity and the power, right?
Well, just before we go, like you mentioned Lyme. Now, is that something you have struggled with a lot, or?
Well, I've been exposed a few times. I think I hit it with docs. Like I had said, I think at 11, I got a dose. I was right in Lyme land, and something went really wrong at that point in my life. Like all my hair fell out, and I was like debilitatingly depressed. But I'm not in an endemic area, so that's nice. I think a lot of people have low levels of chronic Lyme that is just kind of cystic and can trigger autoimmune disease. It's you know, it's one of those chronic infections that is a bigger deal than we're giving it light. But at the same time, if you're living a healthy lifestyle in the sun, exercising, eating low carb, at least you know, you should be able to manage it, right? But it's a huge thing. It's crazy.
How do people get tested for that?
So there's a few companies. It's really horrible testing, because it's the standard testing is really poor. But you know, IGeneX, or there's this new company, DNA Connections and iSpot, and there's different ones. But it's sometimes it's a clinical diagnosis, especially all the co-infections, because there's really no testing for all the Babesia and the Bartonella is hard to test for. So yeah, but the other I'm scared of that. But that whole, I've seen a patient who's allergic to red meat, and it's so sad, from that Rocky Mountain, the AGAL. I'm like, if I go to the mainland, I'm putting on some DEET, because I will die if I don't get allergic to red meat. I'm like, no.
They don't have ticks there.
No, we don't have that. So we actually have rat lungworm, which is crazy. So we have this slug parasite that is eaten, that's found on salads, and I have patients here who are in like encephalitic, like you go into comas, death, suicide, chronic neurological pain. Basically, it's just almost like a spirochete, like Lyme. It just goes in your central nervous system and wreaks havoc. And it was in China, and now it's here, and literally people are getting it from a slug in their raw kale smoothies, or salad picked from their yard, or babies are picking up a slug, putting in their mouth. And it's rare to get a bad case. But what's interesting is when they test the population here, 30% have antibodies. So we're getting little bits and think we have the flu or something. But so literally, that's another reason why no one's eating salads here. Like, we're like, crazy.
Well, that's another good reason not to eat it. Well, awesome, Dr. Hannah. It's been great talking to you. So tell everyone where they can find you and if they want to get in touch with you.
Yeah, so Dr. Hannah Lay on Instagram, and HannahRobertsND.com is my website. And yeah, I'm starting a YouTube channel, so I'll try to get more content up there. And yeah, you can find me. But also, yeah, and if you're interested in coming to Hawaii and doing a carnivore retreat, I haven't fully, I'm in that sort of dream up mode and fleshing it out, all the logistics. But I've done personal retreats and do a lot of ozone and IV therapy and that as well. But just kind of look into the power of the sun, grounding, low EMF, simple grass-fed, nose-to-tail ruminant, just simple, and working with kettlebells and functional training and Butenko breath, doing more simple, teaching people how to really get practices that help themselves and take the power back. So that's that's my focus right now.
That's awesome. That sounds like a lot of people would take you up on that. I would love to go. All right. Well, it's been great meeting you, and make sure and like this video and subscribe and share with a friend and ring the bell so you get all the notifications. Thanks again, guys. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.